I genuinely wonder if these people have some kind of limited early stage AI for brains. It's like, do you not understand abstracts? They see Via Getty in an image and they're like, his name is Via Getty. It's like, did any of you think?
That study did come out where there are real NPCs. They do not have an internal monologue.
These people are not very smart.
This is Twitter 1.0. These are the people who used to rule the world.
Wow.
Oh, was this like it was a trending thing, wasn't it?
It was, actually. But they were like, who names their kid Via Getty? Like, no one. That's...
Wow. You know what it is, though? I saw this post from JD Vance, and he had said something like, he's like, my two boys eat like 14 eggs a day. So, I got to, something. And some journalist, was it Stephanie Rule or whatever? I don't know her name. She was just like 14 eggs a day between two people. That's like 90 eggs a week. Do you really think people believe this? And JD Vance was like, I once said I could sleep all day, and they fact checked me saying I sleep only 8 hours. Like, these people cannot understand. I know the NPC meme, it's meant to be a joke, but I genuinely wonder if these people have some kind of limited early stage AI for brains. It's like, do you not understand abstracts? They see Via Getty in an image and they're like, his name is Via Getty. It's like, did any of you think?
That study did come out where there are real NPCs. They do not have an internal monologue. They don't.
Well, it's true, but I've met people who are based who say they don't. And I've talked to people and asked them, like, you have no inner monologue, and they're like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, you don't think words? You don't like think in chains of thoughts of consciousness and language? And they're like, I see pictures and like images. And I was like, okay, well, they weren't woke and they seem to be answering my questions. So I don't want to immediately just assume that anybody who can't formulate, have an inner monologue is incapable of processes. I don't know.
I think NPCs are more like there are people who are more communal in nature, like they like to be a part of something. You saw it with the masking. People were excited to mask up because they thought, like, I'm a part of something bigger than myself. And that's like people who are religious, people who believe in God are kind of more immune to that because we already have something that's actually meaningful that's bigger than ourselves. Those who don't are kind of looking for that, and so there's that sense to where the NPCs that go along with the crowd, you're kind of finding meaning in something bigger than yourself.
But it's the same mindset. It's the same NPC mindset of these mainstream journalists that are still on the J6 beat, that are still writing stories about it, still covering the trials, and they can't seem to find their way to realize that 99.9998% of the people that were there that day, weren't insurrectionists, weren't there for any other issue. There were only, by the Department of Justice own numbers, about 225 people that did violence. Now, they've charged more people with that because, you get them for aiding and abetting, or they were near it, or they touched the sign that was being passed over their head, rather than, it's just a normal response that you do. Something's coming over your head, you reach up. That person got charged with a felony.
Or someone's pushing you from behind, your hands go up to not fall over.
Yeah.
I think we all know the atrocities committed by Lectern Man over here.
Yes.
But what were you accused of doing?
I have been accused of glorified trespassing. That's the first one right there. Also, abusive language and abusive behavior, because before and after the event, when I was outside of the restricted areas, I said some things I didn't like. Like, for instance, in my hotel room that night afterwards in Virginia, I called Nancy Pelosi a bitch. And
that's it. Lock him up.
It's in my charging document. Something I said in my hotel room on a podcast that night with another journalist. We're watching television. So I get back. We pour, we're literally pour an adult beverage. We've got the camera rolling. It's going live to YouTube, and I'm joking about what we're seeing on the television, which was allegedly somebody had stolen Pelosi's laptop. Right. So I said these words, and it's in my charging documents. God, I wish I'd taken that laptop. Can you imagine what I would have learned about the government? I'm an investigative journalist. I say that. They use those words against me, that I wish I had stolen Pelosi's laptop. Wow. And then I tell the story about when I went down the hallway into her office suite. So as I turned into and I've got my camera rolling the whole time. So I go into the office suite, And as soon as I see, and my camera frames up on actual damage in her office, tables flipped over, bookshelves are rifled, stuff's all over the floor, in my head, I went, I got to get the heck out of Dodge. Because this is the first time I'd seen damage inside the Capitol. I don't need to be here. So I actually say that I said the word. Unfortunately, I saw damage in Pelosi's office. The word unfortunately. But I followed it up with, but it couldn't have happened to a more deserving bitch. and that ends up in my charging document.
Wow. You got charged with telling the truth.
Right.
Well, I suppose they put that towards intent or something, or motive.
Yes, that's correct. That is exactly what they're trying to frame. What your intentions are, your mental mindset of the day. It's a thought crime.
There was another. I believe this is part of your story. There was another journalist who had been basically in the same areas as you, was walking around with you, but his framing of everything was insurrection, bad, evil men. Yeah. And so no charges for him.
Yeah. Actually, Luke Mogelson, who submitted his story to the New Yorker, famously captured the cell phone camera video of the QAnon shaman praying in the Senate and doing all the things he did in the Senate chamber. Luke captured that, wrote the story, submitted it to the New Yorker, and the title of his story was "Among the Insurrectionists." Well, that was his get out of jail free card right there. But he actually went through a broken window before I did.
Wow.
Then you can see, because I had access to all the Capitol CCTV, so I didn't have to wait on discovery from the government to get all the video of me in the Capitol. I already had it. And not only that, but even though it's marked sensitive or highly sensitive, which would mean I can't release it unless it's used in a trial, I had received it directly from Speaker Johnson.
Wow.
So I was able to release the entire 37 minutes of me inside the Capitol, and it shows me behaving better than most of the journalists that were there that day. I wasn't parading. I wasn't wearing any political attire, no Trump gear or anything like that. You see me actually getting and moving away from the crowd, videotaping above and away, and then stopping on occasion to actually take notes, setting my backpack, my tripod down and taking notes. And so all of this is now. So what they try to do, as you said, Tim, is they try to frame the intent of my insurrectionism by words I said before and afterwards.
That's insane.
But what they're not doing is they're not going after the other. No, we've cataloged right now somewhere between 80 and 100 other journalists, freelancers, stringers, independents, social media influencers, podcasters, including actual employees of major media companies who entered a restricted space. Now, just because you work for the New York Times or just because you have a badge, a press pass of any kind, that does not give you the legal right to enter a restricted space unless you're given express permission to do so by law enforcement. So anybody, especially a journalist, Journalism 101, first year in journalism school, no, you cannot enter a taped off, police area. Your press pass does not give you permission to do that. But somewhere in between 80 and 100 did do that, but the only ones who have been charged so far are the ones, and there's a handful of us.
Colbert's people did that, I think.
Yeah, with Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. They tried to get into Nancy Pelosi's office or something, didn't they?
Well, they were there after hours when it was closed or something like that, and they were like walking around where they weren't supposed to be unescorted, and nobody cared. The argument they made, because Colbert actually addressed this, was, we weren't there to protest, we're just walking around, and it's like, okay, so get charged with trespass.
Well, is it illegal or not? Is pulling a fire alarm illegal or not? There should be a standard of justice across the board.
Don't you besmirch the name of Jamal Bowman. He thought that fire alarm opened the door. Isn't that what he said? He thought the fire alarm would unlock the door?
Yeah, but he knew better because he removed the two signs.
Mm-hmm. No. He thought that if he pulled the lever, the doors would fly open and those signs could go whipping out into the air, injuring someone. So he politely took them down before opening the door.
Maybe he just did a lot of escape rooms and he's like, there's a secret way to get out this way. I got to move a couple signs around.
No, but that was the legal. If we're going to talk about the legal side of it, is that the government is deliberately ignoring 100 other individuals, allegedly press of some sort, of some type, that entered a restricted space. So we have actually on the table right now. We should probably hear within the week, we have a motion to dismiss my case based on selective prosecution.
Wow.
Beautiful.
And then not only is it very well written, very well presented to the judge to rule upon, but even if he rules against it, which we expect him to do, it's about a 50-50 chance that because in the motion we demand that the government provide for us the discovery on that 100 journalists.
Fantastic.
Oh.
And that will piss them off. And they will not have time to provide that discovery in the next 4 to 5 weeks before my trial.
But they can the judge deny you that discovery?
Yes, he can absolutely deny it. And they have given me a plea offer. We just got that a couple of weeks ago, and
Are you allowed to say what it is? Or
yeah, it's public. They have offered me the opportunity rather to plea down to the glorified trespassing charge, which is entering and remaining in a restricted space, as my single and only charge. Now, in a plea offer, they do not tell you what your punishment will be. For taking the plea. Right. It's just assumed based on the comparatives that I'd probably get 2 years probation and a large fine.
Oh, so not prison for 3 months?
Well, for instance, you get the trial punishment if you go to trial.
Yeah, but I mean,
I took a plea deal. I went to prison for 3 months for that charge.
Right.
Yes, but I mean, how could you even compare the hardworking journalism of Steve to your atrocity of taking?
You touched the sacred lectern.
You lifted a lectern up and then put it down.
My judge was mostly pissed off that I was smiling. He could not wrap his head around. How are you smiling? And I was like, well, I just don't like the government.
But see, I've had. Go ahead.
Quick question: Is it possible that if you accept this plea agreement, the judge could say, like, you're going to say you're guilty in exchange for this plea down? Is it possible the judge just says, "Sure, I don't care. I'm throwing the book at you"?
Absolutely, 100%. Wow. Now, the single charge, they can put me in prison for up to 12 months and multi-$1,000 fine. Now, they've increased the fines now, as you've probably been following here, is that over the last year especially, these people who have had the Give, Send, Go accounts, and they've been raising money for not only their legal fees, but also, in many cases, just to keep their mortgage because they've lost their jobs. Some of these guys have been have been held in pretrial detention. They've raised as much as $250,000 for their legal defense funds and paying their mortgage, that kind of thing, while dad's in prison, those kinds of things. Well, now the courts are fining these people that amount of money which they raised. This is evil. Whoa. This is evil. So if they raise $50,000 or raised $250,000 through their Give, Send, Go, that's their fine. Now, what
are they publicly stating it's because you raised the money?
Absolutely.
They're saying you raised all this money, we're taking it from you.
They're showing what you were how you benefited essentially from your charge or from your crime. So you've benefited this much from your crime, so that's what your fine is going to be. So that's why even in my plea deal, we anticipate a very, very stiff penalty because they're going to argue you were an independent at the time, and since then you've been hired by the Blaze. You've been financially remunerated for your crime.
Wow!
And so your fine, they're actually thinking my fine could be as high as $100,000.
Wow, that's insane.
Whereas Ray Epps got $500 fine.
Mm-hmm. $500.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, all he did was tell people to go into the Capitol over and over again.
He also had his hands on the sign that was being pushed into cops.
So which other people got a felony for, he didn't.
Yeah.
But was it possible that he was trying to adhere to the sign like Spider-Man to pull it away from the police?
It's possible. Feds work in mysterious ways.
Do you know what I was shocked about, though? To find out that there were people being sent to prison who weren't even there that day.